Welcome to the Author Your Life podcast, where you can write a new script for your life and become the hero of your story. I'm your host, David McRae. You are the author of your life. Let's get started.
All you have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to you.
In my experience, there's no such thing as luck.
It is not our abilities that show what we truly are. It is our choices.
Hello, story changers, and welcome back to another episode of the Isolation Inspiration Interview Series. Our guest today is Sarah Parks. Sarah's background is as a professional actor, specialising in TV and theatre for young people. For those of you who are listening in the UK, you may have seen her on the CBeebies channel. She now uses a unique blend of coaching, personal development, communication, and parenting skills gathered over 20 years to help mums move from being stressed and not knowing what to do to confident and calm. She is helping parents manage the big emotions that are coming up from navigating this huge transition to a new parenting and social normal. In this interview, you will learn how to use breathing to reduce pain, the gifts from Sarah's stillborn son, the different attitudes to mums and dads' parenting styles, and that everyone has a project they can share during the coronavirus period. You're going to learn this and so much more in this interview with Sarah Parks.
What I'm doing right now is I'm really focusing on supporting mums in particular, actually. I've over the years I've developed a passion for communication, but also specifically since I've become a mum, for parenting skills and communication with my kids. So I suppose, that's grown over the years before I had children, and then it just took a different direction. It went in a different direction, really, since I had a family. And I live in Edinburgh, in Scotland, and I came here because we had a particular vision for it was because of my kids, actually. So a lot of my life, a lot of my why is centered around my family and centered around my children. And I know a lot of people might move to another city because of their job, because of their work, or to another country. And we moved from Leeds in England to Edinburgh because we had a vision. We had a vision for the kind of education that we wanted for our children. And so we went out on a bit of a quest to find a school that would be a good fit. And there was one actually nearby in York. So our children go to the Steiner school here in Edinburgh. And there was one in York, but it doesn't have an upper school, that particular school. And so we really wanted somewhere where that we could make a home, and that our children could go there sort of long term if they choose to, because as a parent, you find out your kids have their own ideas of what they want to do. They have their own ideas of what life's going to be like. And one of the things that we really want to encourage in our children is for them to be free thinkers and to have their own desires and wants, needs, and to follow their hearts. So we chose a school with an upper school, but so they could go there till they're 18, but they might have other ideas, and we'll just have to see what that brings when we get to it. But right now they're age 10 and 6, so I don't have to worry about that bit yet. So we ended up here in Edinburgh because we had this vision of the type of school we wanted them to go to, and that was all kind of rooted in helping us have an environment where they would develop a real love of learning and have a holistic kind of school experience as well, where it's not just about the academic side of things, it's not just about learning stuff, but actually it's about them as a person, it's about them as a spiritual being, it's about them as their how they learn. So yeah, I love that the emphasis is more on learning and how they learn and developing a love of learning than what they learn so much, and being, strongly academic. Although, there's plenty of people who go to a Steiner school and end up being a doctor or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so for us it was about resilience for them, really. I didn't realize I'm going to speak so much about this, actually. I haven't particularly planned what I'm going to say tonight. I just thought I would just go with what feels, wants to come. So that's basically what brought us to Edinburgh, to the location where we are.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of my work, I suppose I'll go back a bit. So my background is as a professional actor. And so I spent many years working in theatre, and I did specialise in working in theatre for young people. So I did a lot of touring theatre in schools and in the community and in lots and lots of different settings, and really loved devising and making something from nothing. Just absolutely love that, creating new material, new work. And helping, and I went through helping other people do that as well, because I'm now a coach and have used coaching skills for a long time. So when I was directing, I very much did that in a coaching kind of style, really drawing out what somebody wants, or drawing out the performance out of them, helping them be their best self. And in those days, it was in terms of the best performer they wanted to be. And help them hone their skills. So I've had quite a what they probably call a portfolio career. I've done lots of things, but mostly I've always been self-employed, which since like 1996. I nearly said I'm showing my age, but then I thought, I'm showing my youth. So this year I'm 46 years young, and I was listening to something earlier that was about age and your perception of age, and I was just thinking, we talk so much about age in a negative way. So yeah, I'm flipping that on its head. So I've kind of lost my train of thought there. What was I saying?
Talking about acting.
Oh yeah, acting. Oh my gosh, yeah. So that's my background in theatre, and then I moved into TV, and did TV. And when I was doing that, I did corporate training, corporate work, which a lot of that was about communication skills. So is the communication again. My whole life has been about communication, really. Communication skills, diversity, difficult conversations, role play, that kind of thing, being a drama specialist, using drama in training to help people, and coaching people around that. So I did that alongside, I still do that actually, alongside the TV work that I was doing. So people might have seen me in things like Coronation Street and Doctors and Bodies and those kind of programs, and as well as I was in a CBeebies program. So and that was on for quite a while. It was probably over about a period of 4 years. So and in the first couple of years, I was probably on TV a fair amount. So, I used to get recognised in the street and all of that kind of thing. So yeah, and then when I had my children, I started a family. I so In 2006, my partner and I decided that we'd like to start a family, but before we did that, we wanted to. We thought it'd be a good idea to go traveling for a bit, because we thought, once you start a family, it's probably going to be a bit more difficult to travel.
Yeah.
So I booked this round the world trip, and we went off. Not for that long, actually. I think it was only 5 weeks. It wasn't 6 months or anything like that. But we went off and went to San Francisco, and it's interesting because I'm somebody who's always been outside the norm. Like I say, I've always been self-employed, for instance. When I was in school, I got to a crunch point and I was like, okay, so I could become an actor or a dancer. Those were the options in my mind. Okay.
Yeah.
Actor or dancer. The careers person was like, the careers teacher was like, maybe you should do teaching so you've got a fallback,
What about being a doctor or a lawyer?
Yeah, why don't you become a teacher, and then at least you got that, because basically you're not going to be able to feed yourself, kind of thing. But for me at that time, I was like, do I become an actor or a dancer, And then I looked at dance and I was like, I love dance. I love dancing. But what I saw was, oh gosh, it's hard work. You've really got to work hard with dancing. Whereas with acting, I could kind of just show up, and it came more easily to me. Or it is easier. Let's face it. If you're going to dance, you need to train for hours. Like anything, you need to have a level of fitness. You need to be dancing for hours every day. Same as if you want to be a musician, you need to play your instrument 2, 3, 4 hours, however many hours a day. It's a lot of work, and even at the kind of age of 14, 15, I was like, oh yeah, I can see, this looks like hard work. So, and I loved acting. So I thought, yeah, I'll go down that route. And actually, I think at some point, if you do become a dancer, you end up probably retraining, because your body can only take that kind of amount of physical training for so many years. Same with athletes. People end up being coaches or whatever, don't they? Because you can only do that while you're young, really. So yeah, I had to choose, and I chose acting, which was right for me at the time, absolutely. And I loved it, absolutely loved it, and I still do. I don't perform that much these days, to be honest, but I still occasionally do some corporate stuff and role play stuff and that kind of thing. So yeah, although right now in this moment, obviously that's all stopped because that's in-person stuff.
Yeah.
And everything we're doing right now is online. So
Yeah.
so yeah, so that's one thing that has changed for me the last few weeks, is the possibility of that coming. It has changed. I was looking at some coaching stroke facilitation work, a job that was coming up, and obviously that didn't happen. So, and it's not going to happen. But anyhow, so yeah, I was, yeah, very much in the realm of performing, which I think really in itself is a form of communication. I think through my life, the times when I've been at my happiest, the times when I'm happiest is when I'm with people and there's a conversation going on, whether that's a physical conversation. Like, I love salsa dancing, and I love that kind of when you're dancing with somebody else, like in a partnership, it's it's a conversation. It's a physical conversation, and I love that. And yeah, so I'm always happiest when I'm in conversation really with others and communicating. And so when I stopped, or when I had my children, things really changed. Partly because of the sort of parent that I knew I wanted to be. I knew that I wanted to spend a lot of time with my children. I wanted to be there for them. And I knew that, before I had my children, but after our round the world trip, so we went to San Francisco, we went to New Zealand, we went to Australia, we went all over the place in Australia, we went to Malaysia, had this lovely trip, and we came back, and you have an idea of what your life's going to look like. You have an idea of where you're going, and have a goal in mind, which was for us was to start a family. So we went, okay, we're going to start a family. Don't know how long that's going to take. Could be fun, doing that. And actually, once we decided that's what we were going to do, I got pregnant like that straight away. So, really easy. And so it's like, yeah, okay, we're doing this. We're starting a family, and it's all been, pretty straightforward. And I was, really had a just great pregnancy. I've had 3 pregnancies, and every time I've been pregnant, I develop like this superpower, which is amazing smell. It's a weird thing, but I think a lot of pregnant women get like heightened senses, and and that's partly why I think you end up with morning sickness. It's just like you can't understand. But although I felt nauseous at times in all 3 of my pregnancies, I was never sick. I never threw up, and it wasn't like really debilitating or anything like that. And I'd have this incredible kind of sense of smell where I could smell, like I'd be walking down the street, I'm like, oh, somebody's smoking, and they'd literally be like, in the distance, but I could smell it. I don't know where that kind of comes from. Probably on a instinctive survival kind of level. It's probably to keep you safe and your baby safe, I expect.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like being a dog suddenly having like super sense of smell. So yeah, that's my pregnancy superpower. So yeah, so we, like I said, it was all going really smoothly, and then everything just changed. Boom, like can happen in life. And all of us are, at the, right now today, we're kind of 3 or 4 weeks into this lockdown of this coronavirus, and things just changed, boom, like that, crazy. And so I was, we suddenly had one of those moments where it was just like, whoa. So, so I was pregnant, and then suddenly something was wrong. And then before I knew it, my baby had died, and I was facing giving birth to a dead baby. So that was just like, whoa. And just that completely changed my life forever, actually. And it was horrific. And I think in every single situation, there is always some good that comes out of it. There is always some silver lining somehow, even if it doesn't feel like it at the time, and often we can't see it till we're past it. So, having been in a soap, in Coronation Street a couple of times and other kind of soaps, I found myself in a situation where it was like being in my own soap. It was surreal. So, so my baby had died. I was supposed to be going to work away, and obviously couldn't go do that. And my friend had invited me to go and see a show called Hair Stories, and it was this amazing writer had written this poet had written this show about hair, about black hair, about Afro hair. And I was like, oh, that sounds great, but I was supposed to be away. And actually, because my baby had died, I could suddenly go to this show, and I was in this position where I was waiting to give birth, this horrible limbo land. And it just, for people who have been through this experience, you know, you'll remember this, you'll understand this, where it's really surreal. And you know, so often in that time I thought, well, they must have made a mistake, because they must have. So I went to this show, kind of, you know, partly because my husband came with me, because I just thought, I'm not sure I can go on my own. So he came with me to this show, and it was an amazing show and a beautiful story of natural black hair and history and slavery and all this stuff. And I'm a black woman, by the way, just
for the audio listeners. Yeah,
I know you can't see me. Can't see me, but I'm a black woman with long dreads. Okay, so and so it was a really interesting piece, and you know, the history of all this, doing stuff with your hair, you know, to make it straight, to change it from what it is naturally, you know. And I think at the time I was about, where was I? 3 years into growing my dreads, so which are now really, really long. So yeah, it was an inspiring evening, and I could just be transported for a while and forget what was happening, and just maybe even for a moment, oh, I'm feeling quite emotional, for a moment, maybe, you know, it wasn't actually happening, you know, that my baby was okay. And so I was listening, you know, watching this beautiful piece, and then at the end, of my friend who's a poet had told me about the show and invited me to it. So you know, we were chatting a bit, and I heard these two women talking as I was, you know, heading out, going, oh, she's pregnant. And I just thought, please don't talk to me. Please don't talk to me, because what am I going to say? Oh, yeah, I am pregnant, but my baby's dead. You can't really say that to someone, you know. So I was like, please, because they seemed really excited, you know, at my big bump, you know. But anyway, they didn't come and talk to me. So I was like so relieved. So yeah, so then I'm in this crazy soap opera scenario where my baby dies on Tuesday, and then my baby's born on Saturday. And the one thing that stayed the same in this whole, when everything went belly up, the thing that I kind of clung on to was that the one thing on our birth plan really that stayed the same was that we wanted to find out whether our baby was a girl or a boy when they were born. And that stayed the same. So so we found out we had a little boy, and I didn't know what to expect. You know, I didn't know what it, you know, you don't know how it's going to be going through that experience. And, you know, my plan, you know, we were booked in to do hypnobirthing that we hadn't managed to do yet. And I was like, I'm not prepared. I'm not ready to give birth. I haven't done the training. I'm not ready, you know. And And the woman that I spoke to, I'd booked in to do it. She was like, "Oh gosh, she was like, I don't know." She said she could send me or get a recording to me of the hypnobirthing, but it's all about meeting your new baby and everything. And she wasn't sure how appropriate it would be and everything. And in hindsight, so if anybody happens to be listening to this and they're in this position, it's for us when our son was born, he's called Buena, when he was born, it was, in a lot of ways, it was just so beautiful to meet him. And I couldn't quite believe he wasn't going to just open his eyes, you know? We spent ages with him, and he was born on the 4th of November. So, and it was a Saturday night. And we were at St. James's Hospital in Leeds, which is on a bit of a hill. And he was born at 9:07 in the evening. And so there were fireworks all over the sky. And it was like the whole of Leeds was celebrating the birth of our son. It was just incredible. So we're in this room and there's fireworks outside and we're meeting him for the first time. And it was just really beautiful. And I didn't, like I say, I didn't know how to be. I didn't know what to do. Nobody prepares you. There's nobody to talk to in this situation either. And, before going to hospital, we packed the hospital bag and we put some snacks in and all the things that you kind of need, don't know what you need. And I brought, at the time I didn't have a smartphone, and I'm not sure my husband did. I don't think he did. And so I packed our digital camera. And I was like, I packed it because that's what you'd have, when your baby's born, you want to take lots of photos. Pack the camera, and I am so, so glad we did, because we took loads of photos. We actually took loads of photos of him. And in that situation, the only thing you have are those photos, because you leave the hospital without your baby. All you've got are the photos or the footprints or the handprints that are done. And these days, I think most hospitals are pretty good. I've met lots of people who didn't even have a photo or a handprint or anything of their child. And that is just heartbreaking, because it's a hard thing being a parent and not having a baby there. So, not having a baby. So people don't know, people can't see that you're a parent, people can't see that you've gone through that whole process and that you are a mum or a dad, but it's just your baby's not around. So I'm so glad we took loads of photos, and the midwife took a photo of all three of us, and that's the only photo we've got of all of us together. And that one photo is probably what most people leave hospital with, one photo, of their child. But yeah, we took loads, so I'm so glad we did. And even with that, I remember really vivid things like he had these huge feet, massive feet for such a tiny baby, these huge feet. And we took some pictures of his feet, and I didn't quite get a picture of his hand kind of outstretched because it was kind of curled up a lot of the time. But we spent all this time looking at him, There's things that we didn't do, like, we didn't get to bathe him and things like that. So I never saw his bum. I never saw his cute little baby bum, Things like that you just don't think about until afterwards, when, you haven't got the opportunity to do that. So it was a strange thing, because it was in some ways at that point the most beautiful moment of my life was meeting him at that point. And then leaving the hospital without him was the most heartbreaking, horrendous, horrible moment of my life. And then a week later, we got married. So we were due to get married. That's what I mean by a soap opera thing.
Time, yeah.
I know. So within 2 weeks, he died. He was born. We got married, and then his funeral was on the Tuesday. So that was like a 2 week period was just nuts, absolutely nuts. Now, we hadn't planned a really big wedding, which I'm really glad of, because I think we'd have struggled with like a big wedding. This would have been too much. But yeah, we just had like I think we had 13 guests altogether. So it was a nice, quiet little wedding at the registry office. And we just thought, well, we'll carry on, with that, and rather than cancel it or postpone it. So we did that, and then it did mean a lot of the guests could stay, silver lining, for the funeral on Tuesday. So who had travelled a long way. So there's always an upside.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is how I became a parent. And with that came many, many gifts. So I always wanted to have a home birth, which didn't happen with Buena. I don't think they'll let you, just because there's a risk to you, actually.
Yeah.
Because I was like, why can't I have my home birth? If he's dead, nothing can happen to him, It's like, nothing can happen to him. But I think it's more about you. Yeah. So with my, so I wanted to have a home birth, but couldn't on that occasion. So for me, there was a whole journey to then having my 2 girls and having those home births that I wanted to have. And doing that after my experience as well is, takes something, actually, because I think to feel confident and comfortable birthing at home and in a natural way, and believing that your body can do what it's supposed to do, is it takes something, because it's not what we're surrounded by. When we don't live in a society where that is the normal way of doing things. Most people go to hospital, that is the norm. So when you're doing things differently that involve trust, when you've had the worst thing happen, it takes something. And I think having that's where getting transformation helped me hugely, because a few years before Buena was born, I did this weekend transformational seminar course thing where I was like, oh my gosh, where I got that anything is possible, where I got it was like a group coaching environment, where I woke up really to that you can have choice in your life, and you can choose. Like, shit's always going to happen, but then you can actually choose how you're going to be about it. You can actually choose how you're going to react to it. And I suppose doing all that kind of work that I did at that time, that sort of transformational stuff, that law of attraction kind of stuff, really helped me when Buena died, to dare to believe that, you know, things are going to be okay, and that I can move through that, and still have what I want. I can have, you know, more children, and that they will be okay, and that I can birth at home, have natural home births, and that I have to say I did have a little help from Tony Robbins as well. In between those two births, where I did a bit more transformational stuff. But yeah, so yeah, I got really into personal development and coaching, you know, group coaching programs and that sort of thing, and was using coaching in a lot of what I was doing with community groups, community settings. My husband and I got really involved with SANS, which is Stillbirth and Neonatal Death Charity. I became the chair of SANS in Leeds for a while. You know, one of Buena's legacies was we got funding and did this whole story capture project to really help bereaved parents. So yeah, like I say, there's many gifts, you know, the great stuff that came out of that, and also understanding death. You know, until then I didn't understand death. You know, it was a concept that I wasn't that close to, and it was an intellectual kind of understanding that I had, because I hadn't had anybody really, really close to me die. And you can't get much closer than, you know, carrying your dead baby, really. So yeah, and I think after Buena died, my nana died 4 weeks later. And I wasn't massively close to her. And I was round at my friend's house having a chat with her, going like, I've kind of had enough of death now. I get it. I understand it. Thank you, universe. I understand death. Thank you for that learning. I get it. I've had enough now. And I was saying this to my friend, and she rang me. This is like 9 o'clock in the morning. We were having a cup of tea and a chat, and she rang me like an hour and a half later, saying her husband had just had a heart attack in a hotel room and just died. I was like, oh my God. You know, I was like, okay, that's enough now. That is enough death for now. Like, I get it. That's enough. But it actually meant that I could support her and be there for her, because I got it. You know, I was still grieving myself, you know, and I really got a sense of that loss and that pain and the stages that you go through. And that, you know, I think sometimes when, you know, people can, and I can have the illusion of this, that transformation is about that you don't have to go through things, but it's not. You still have to go through it. There's, you know that children's story. You can't go over it. You can't go under it. You've got to go through it. You know, the going on a bear hunt. Going on a bear hunt is.
Yeah.
Like going on a bear hunt. I'm not scared. Yeah, you can't go over it. You can't go under it. You've got to go through it. There's no way but through. You know, you've got to feel those feelings. You've got to allow those feelings to come and acknowledge those and feel them, for them to pass. You know, you can't avoid them. And actually, when you resist them, you know that saying, what you resist persists. When you resist something, you just get more of it. You focus on it more, you get more of it. So you've really got to just allow that. And the parenting stuff that I do right now, one of the foundations of that actually is acknowledging your feelings. That's one of the foundations, is really feeling those feelings and allowing them. And part of that is accepting yourself, your children, your partner for who they are, for how they are, that they are whole, complete and perfect just the way they are. Actually, they don't need to pretend to be anything else. They are enough, the way they are. So that is the foundation to the parenting skills that I teach now. Is that really allowing, honoring those feelings. Yeah. So from that start, it is lovely. It is great when you do achieve what you want to achieve, So when my eldest daughter was born, as you can imagine, amazing. Oh my goodness. And I did the hypnobirthing, and I did the I was every day I would have a nap in the afternoon and do my hypnobirthing meditation every day and rest, and it was just gorgeous. And of course, it's mandatory when you're having a baby to do some nesting. So of course, what most people do is move house or get married or do both or do crazy things, because that's what you do when you're having a baby. You suddenly go, oh, got to do this now because we're not sure when we're going to be able to do it. So, people move house or whatever. What we did is my husband created a new kitchen for us. So we chose a kitchen, we bought this lovely IKEA kitchen, and he stripped back our kitchen to brick. He learned how to plaster. He plastered it. He built the whole thing. He did the whole works. Wow. It was amazing. He's never done anything like that before. He did the whole kitchen. Brilliant. So we could have a dishwasher. That was really important. The dishwasher was really important. We need a dishwasher. We're having a baby. We need a dishwasher. So we built this amazing kitchen. But of course, things often don't go to plan. And of course, when it was my daughter's due date, the kitchen wasn't quite finished. Not quite finished. So unsurprisingly, she didn't arrive until 12 days after her estimated due date, which was exactly one day after the kitchen was finished. I don't think that's a coincidence.
Was clearly waiting, yeah.
When the kitchen was finished. So she's a very considerate young woman, actually, my eldest daughter, and she even was when she was in the womb. So there we go. And her bump name was Tabbit. So all of my children have had a bump name, and Buena kept his. His bump name was Buena. And when he was born, we'd been calling him Buena for months, talking to him, singing to him, chatting to Buena. So when he was born, it seemed really, that was his name. There was no, we weren't going to name him anything else. That was his name. And it's his name it means good, Buena. But where we got it from was when we were we went to the cinema. We were watching the credits. We always sit to the end of the credits, where those sort of people that sit to the end of the credits. All those people have worked so hard to produce that film. We're going to sit and we're going to read their names. We're going to see them.
I guess you appreciate it more being an actor, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm like, that could be my name there.
Yeah.
So we sat and we use that to think about names, because there's all those names. It's a great way if you're trying to choose a name for your baby. Sit to the end of the credits in a film, and then you can look at all the different names and go, "Ooh, Ivor, maybe not. I'm not sure." Whatever, and look at all the different names. And we got to the very bottom, and it was Buena Vista, and we were like, "Oh, if you're having twins, we could have one could be Buena and the other could be Vista," and that's how Buena got his bump name. because he wasn't a twin, he was on his own. So we called him Buena after that. So he kept his bump name. Whereas my eldest, her bump name was Tabbit, which was an acronym for "There's a baby in there."
Right.
Because there's a baby in there. Because I said that a lot. I was so excited. I was so excited to be pregnant. I was so excited that I could listen to her heartbeat really regularly, that I could see her moving, that I was so excited to be pregnant. And so I would say quite a lot, there's a baby in there, there's a baby in there, there's a baby in there, there's a baby in there. I was really excited. So she was born at home, which was amazing because I got my home birth. I got my beautiful home birth. I spent hours in my pool with my husband pouring water down my back, which probably felt like water torture to him because it was for about 4 hours. More water! I need more water! More water! Amazing, yeah. So had a great birth actually with her, and I had a glimpse into, because when I got to the last stage, the midwives decided they wanted me to come out of the pool so they could see what was going on, and that sort of pushing stage, the last bit, was totally totally pain free actually, that bit, just that little part. And I've been using gas and air quite a lot, and we ran out. We hadn't run out at that point. We ran out while I was being stitched. That's a whole nother story. Maybe you don't want to hear that. That was the most painful part of my birth, was being stitched afterwards. There we go. And the gas and air ran out. But what I did discover, silver lining, there is always a silver lining, always. I discovered actually that breathing is as powerful as gas and air. That's when I discovered that, was when I was being stitched after the birth of my first daughter, and the gas and air had run out, and I just did deep breathing. And it was bizarre because I'm in the bedroom. Okay, a comedy moment, right? I'm in the bedroom, legs akimbo, right? I've got 2 midwives between my legs. One's stitching, and I've got one holding one leg and my husband holding the other leg. The one holding one of my legs was complaining about her knees hurting because she was kneeling on the floor, and she's complaining about her knees hurting. This is like, the gas and air's run out. I am being stitched.
Yeah.
And she's complaining about her knees. But I was doing my deep breathing, and I must have sounded like something out of a hippie commune, because I was going, breathe with me, everyone. It really works. If your knees are hurting, just breathe with me. Breathe deeply. It's really working. I think that's the endorphins, the birth hormone.
The gas and air is still circulating.
No, the gas and air had run out. This was just me breathing. But the amazing thing is, I didn't realize I was going to talk about birth so much, but I love natural birth actually. Amazing, because fast forward to the birth of my youngest child, and she was born very, very quickly, so in an hour and a half from start to finish. And I had a completely pain-free birth from the beginning. I did that breathing I'm just talking about from the beginning with her. And it was the most incredible thing. And when I was preparing for my eldest's home birth, I watched loads of these home birth stories. So, when you want to do something, it's really important to get yourself in the space, in the mindset of whatever that thing is. And so for me, I wanted to birth at home. So I watched positive home birth stories. I watched, I read stories, I watch stories, I try to immerse myself and surround myself with people who have already done what I want to do, with people who are already, and to keep away from negativity, keep away from, it's always driven me mad. I get on my high horse about how in films they always portray women in pain, screaming on their backs in hospital. It drives me mad. That's the only image that gets touted for birth over and over. It's like we're being brainwashed with this bloody really negative image. It's unhelpful. And for extra drama, things always go wrong, and it's just like, you don't need that shit. And so if you want to have a different story, you want to connect with a different narrative, you have to surround yourself with a different story. So that's kind of what I did. And when I was watching those, there was this woman who had this completely pain-free birth, and I was like, wow, that would be amazing. Never in a million years thinking that I would be somebody who had experienced that. But I did. And I was like, wow. It was incredible having, this really quick hour and a half. And I think it was an hour and a half probably because I didn't push. I didn't actively push. So my body was doing what it does, and I was focusing on breathing and keeping keeping my logical brain out of the way, and actually just going into my body and letting my body do its thing. So I had this image when I was giving birth to my eldest. I had this thing that I just wanted to breathe her out, and the midwife that came wasn't a home birth midwife, and she didn't feel very comfortable actually there, and didn't want to be there. And when I said I just want to breathe her out, she said, you can't do that. And the other thing she said was, your last baby was really small, and you won't be able to do that this time. I was like, not helpful, lady. But anyway, so with my youngest, with Phoebe, I did just breathe her out, and that was the most amazing thing. So because I didn't do any active pushing, which I'm sure my husband was really glad of, because nobody had arrived yet, the midwife hadn't arrived yet, and half an hour in, I'm just like, just have a little feel, see what's going on. I'm like, there's a head. My husband's like, it's okay, just relax, no need to push. He's just like, can you come down? Can you come down? So the midwife literally arrived 10 minutes before she was born, just in time to catch her. So it was nearly a free birth. So yeah, it was really, really cool, really cool. So that's how I became a mum. And I think because I've just wanted to be there for my kids, the goal for me became, being there, drinking in as much of their childhood as I can, watching them grow up and having all of that. And I think, like I say, the gifts, that come from your experiences, and, missing out on all of on that with Brenna just made me want to have that with my girls, such a precious experience, their childhood. And everybody says, you hear things over and over, like it goes by so quickly.
Yeah.
And, they're only young once, and all of these things that people say, and it's true. It really is. So for me and my husband, the way we have designed our lives is so that we can spend as much time with our children as we can while they're young, and while they want us there, cuddling them and reading them stories and just doing all those beautiful things, and having this gorgeous family time. So I work from home. My husband is a full-time dad, and our life is really designed around our children, around our family, because there'll come a day when they want to be off and they don't, or they, we're cramping their style and they don't want us around, So we're just enjoying it as much as we can and drinking it all in. And, along this journey, so my work changed because I used to travel a lot. I used to be away a lot. And when I used to do touring theatre, I was away a lot. And then I got to the point, partly why I went into doing TV and corporate work is because I wanted to be home more. I wanted to have a sense of being at home instead of it just being this nice place that I was never at, because I was always in some hotel room somewhere, thinking, wouldn't it just be great to be at home and just having beans on toast for dinner instead of having to eat in a restaurant? And I know that's bizarre when you're somebody who doesn't get out much and doesn't eat in restaurants, but when you have to eat in a restaurant every single night, oh my goodness, it's not that exciting, and you put on loads of weight. When I was touring a lot, I got to the point where I would order a starter because I was like, I just can't eat that amount of food every night, Well, I could, and I put on loads of weight, so I had to do something about it. But yeah, so with the way I live my life is really centered around my family. And so when Freya was very little, I'd been using coaching skills for years, and then I did a coaching accreditation so that I could have a piece of paper to say that I can coach people. And so I did that, and I've really weaved that into the work that I do. And being a parent, I'm wanting to be the best parent that I can be. I read books, and I came across a book called How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk. And I loved it. I was like, this is great. It's a brilliant book. And I can see that a lot of books, because it was written quite a long time ago, have come from that as well.
Yeah.
Or have similar ethoses and stuff, but it's one of the earlier ones. And so I use those skills. And because I've always done all this work with groups and facilitation and communication, they're just fantastic communication skills, but how you're thinking about using them is with kids, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So it fitted in really well for me. So I then started incorporating that into my work and leading workshops, teaching people how to use these skills that I still and will continue to use, on a day-to-day basis in my life, along with other stuff, along with my coaching stuff, skills, and other books as well. Like I love the love languages, which are amazing for couples, for kids, for, don't know if you come across those.
Yeah, Guy Chapman. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Do you know, I first came across those, Anthony Robbins kind of talked about him, and I didn't really look into them at that time. And then it was after, a few years later that I first got into those through the children's work version that he's written.
Yeah.
5 Love Languages of Children, and then looked at the couples one and different ones. But yeah, love it. And I think what I love about these skills is that you can make a change. It's transformation for parents. That's what it is, That's what I do. Oh my gosh, I just realized that's what I do. Transformation for parents, really. Yeah. And I just draw on the different skills from different places that that help me help them, to make life easier, because actually if you know how to meet your own needs for love, if you know how to meet your children's needs for love, instead of just, it's quite tiring being a parent. It can be. It's pretty full on. It certainly is a marathon, not a sprint. It really is. And so, and I've definitely done things I never thought were possible since I've been a parent. And it really is the biggest transformation program you will ever engage in. And it goes on for like years, for the whole of your life.
Yeah.
It goes on for the whole of your life, the rest of your life, basically. Once they're born, that's it. and you get to do things you never thought you would be able to do. You get to be somebody you didn't know you could be. You get to love in a way that you never thought possible. It's incredible. Really is incredible. And it gives you those absolute highs and absolute lows. It gives you love beyond what you ever thought, just like that you would die for, that you would and also the absolute depths of despair as well. Like, I can't do this. Your nipples are bleeding, you're trying to feed your baby, and you're like, I can't do this, oh my God. But I that's a bit flippant in some ways, but I literally my eldest didn't sleep for a long time. So it was 2.5 years before I got 3 hours in a row of sleep consistently.
Wow.
I know nobody wants to hear that. That is hard. That is hard. I did get 3 hours in a row, through taking shifts.
Yeah.
Through getting respite from, my mother-in-law, sometimes helping out. But that wasn't that often. And that's what I mean by it being a marathon. I did not know that was humanly possible for me. And people would go, oh, how's it going? I think, has the sleep got better? I'm like, no. And they're like, wow, you look amazing. I'm like, yeah, thanks. But it was tough. It was hard. And yeah, I didn't know I could do that. And I think sometimes parents don't appreciate what amazing things they do. We look at people who run marathons and go, wow, that's amazing. I could never do that. So it takes all this training and da da da. Well, we run our own marathons in our own way,
Yeah.
And sometimes that is not having, being sleep deprived for years and years and years. Or, and that might be your marathon, But I think one of the things I feel really passionate about, and it's something that I'm weaving into the new online course that I'm creating just at the minute. So by the time people are listening to this, it'll be available, is very much still keeping hold of a sense of who you are, because through being a parent, and if you're wanting to drink every moment in like me, and you're in that kind of position, it can be easy to really lose yourself, really lose a sense of who you are and what you want and what your likes and dislikes are and what have you, and kind of almost sacrifice yourself, and so keeping that a sense of who you are, and that to be a good parent, you don't have to throw yourself under the bus. Actually, you can be a good parent and still be you, which is what the course will be called, something around that. So it'll have an element of that, along with incredible skills, all these incredible skills that I've gathered over the years are all be woven into this beautiful online course with coaching and this holding space to develop and explore and transform your family, transform what is, the things that aren't working, have that real safe space to do that, because we're habitual creatures and we get into habits, our kids get into habits, we get into habits with them and can end up in ones that don't work for us and that are quite negative actually. And so, I'm so glad I've got these tools to help people break those, to get out of those loops that they're stuck in, So, yeah. So that's what I'm doing now, really. I'm helping moms and I'm helping families. And, in February, I was like, okay, so I was looking at goals on, and we saw each other in December.
Yeah.
Our goals for the year a bit, weren't we?
Yeah,
And
it's crazy
like,
thinking back to that, actually. Yeah.
I know. Seems
Yeah.
it's like a lifetime ago, isn't it?
And it was the sort of the whole, here are all the things that I'm going to do in 2020. And within, I'm sure this is very similar for you, within 3 months, I've basically just had to rip up the sheet and start again almost. Like the sort of the bigger vision stuff you adapt and you're flexible with, but the small term things of, this is the workshop that I'm going to run. Well, now I can't run workshops anymore because we're all in isolation. It's it's crazy how much it's changed since then.
Yeah, and one of the things for me was I had been resisting moving more online.
Yeah.
And in January, I launched my first online course. So I thought, well, I'll dip my toe in the water. I'll do my first online course. And that just finished just before this hit. And I was like, whoa, I'm so glad I did that. And I'm quite an intuitive person. I can be a bit woo-woo. And so when I was kind of checking in and just seeing, because I had this conversation with somebody who was like, oh, why don't you, if people want in-person stuff, why don't you do that? And I'm like, well, it's like the universe is telling me really that I need to be doing this online stuff. And I checked in again and it was like, no, yeah, you need to be doing online. I'm like, okay, whatever. And then literally like 2 weeks later, this COVID malarkey hit, and I was like, oh my goodness, obviously was spot on. And so so the gift of the COVID-19 to me is to make me develop the online stuff, develop that side of it that I'd been resisting for ages. I've been resisting it for ages. But also showing up in a new way, in an authentic way as well, because, I've got a lot of facility with these amazing skills, right? And I use them and I've been using them a long time, but I don't use them exclusively. And it's so easy just to go, well, what I was doing before with my in-person courses was I was literally pretty much delivering the course, somebody else's course, the author's course. I had tweaked it because I can't help it. I'm like, well, I could just make improvements here and there. And now I'm like, actually, no, it's time. Now it's time to create my own signature course, which is what I'm doing right now with Sarah's secret sauce, that has lots of these lovely skills that I've gathered over the years, that's put together in my own unique way, that I know will give people that fantastic transformation for themselves and their families. So in February, I'd honed my vision a little bit more, which was to help 500 families this year through mums, because I really see mums as being the glue that holds the family together. Now, it's interesting because I think my family, I don't know if I said this earlier in the podcast, but I've always rebelled a little bit against what's fashionable, what's popular a little bit. So when Friends came out and everybody was watching Friends, I'm like, I'm not going to watch Friends. Everybody's watching it, you know. And then everybody was reading Harry Potter. I'm like, I'm not going to read that. I did read it, but I was like, I'm doing it in my own time. You know, so I've always rebelled against, you know, my whole life. I've worked outside, you know, I've never been somebody who's had a job unless that job has had an end date. You know, it's for a period of time and then it finishes. Not like I'm going to work in this job for 20 years. You know, I just don't operate like that. And so, yeah, I've always kind of rebelled a little bit. Oh, I've lost the train of where I was going with that. There was a reason why I started talking about that.
What were you talking about? Let's see. Talking about course, February, change the vision, go against the grain.
Oh yeah, going against the grain, of course. So the reason I see women or mums as being the glue that holds families together is because they usually are. You know, years ago when I was pregnant with Buena, I went to my friend's wedding, and a lady I'd worked with years ago, I'd done quite a few tours. She was the director of the theatre company, and she was a mutual friend, and I was like, oh wow! And she had this beautiful daughter who I'd seen when she was like 11 months old, and she was like 6 or something at this point. I was like, oh wow, it's really nice to see her again. And I was pregnant, and you know, it was you know, lovely to see her. And she said, you know what? Because I was like, yeah, I'm excited, and I've got this amazing man, and we're on the same page, and we're partners, and we're doing this together. And she said, no matter how much you think you're going to do this together, and it's going to be 50-50, it won't be. It never is. You will end up doing far more. And I was like, oh, that's a bit negative, you know. But actually, that's usually how it goes in most households. You know, not all, and not mine, actually. Not mine at all. You know, it's like, but I get that the majority of time, that's how it is, actually. That, you know, when I see mums who are like working part-time and looking after the kids, and their husbands, you know, will say things like, I'll help you with the kids. It's like, you're not helping, they're your kids. You know, it's not like you're doing her a favor by looking after the kids like it's her responsibility and you just get to swan in and do a bit. It's like, no, they're yours as well. So, you know, that there can be that, but I think in our society as a whole, what is expected from women and what is expected from men is different, you know, in terms of parenting, you know. And people think my husband is amazing. He's like a saint, you know. They're like, your husband's amazing. He does everything. And he is amazing. But actually, if he was a woman, you wouldn't be saying that. You would just expect it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because he's just being a good parent.
Yeah.
And he's cooking and he's looking after the kids and stuff. But because, you know, so it's like people have this mindset or this mentality, and I think a lot of the time the way our society is set up is not to value people who, you know, the parenting role, for instance, as much as earning money, you know. Or not. And it's, you know, we're seeing it as well, not valuing the role of carers as much as people who earn lots of money, you know, which is why they're paid a crap wage. Well, actually, they're doing something vital, you know.
They're
that
the ones
makes
who are
a
key
massive
workers
difference.
at the moment, not the
Exactly.
anchors and insurance agents and
Absolutely. And this is the gift of COVID, isn't it? I think, because it's like getting back to basics, getting back to seeing what is actually vitally important in our society. What is important? You know, the people who look after who care for us, you know, who I had an operation in September, and there was a guy who came and was with me, who wheeled me to the anesthetic room and was there and helped me feel okay. You know, he's a key worker. He is vital, you know, and he probably doesn't get paid a lot of money. So I think it's about what we value, and I think parenthood, motherhood is something that is undervalued. Where what we're doing is bringing up the next generation. That's massive. That is huge, you know. And I think it's taken for granted and not appreciated. So I think what's behind my kind of vision of helping families through mums is for them to value themselves and to maybe help somebody to readdressing the balance. We've gotten out of whack, we've gotten out of balance, and to just bring that back to what's truly important. So, you know, I really hope we come out of this situation with this global pandemic having reevaluated a lot of things, you know, and what we place value on being one of them.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of, I suppose, wider vision. How I'm going to do it? You know, when I started with this, I'm going to help 500 families this year. Like, I have no idea how am I going to do that, you know? But it's just like, you just put it out there, don't you? You just put it out there, you hold the vision, and you see what comes, you know? So yeah. I know you write books, don't you?
I do, yeah. I'm actually taking advantage of the current situation to get some more writing done. So there's another silver lining for you, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, with my passion for home birth and stuff, I had this idea quite a long time ago to write a story from stillbirth to home birth, something like that. You know, to kind of tell my story and help people along that journey. But I haven't gotten around to writing very much of that. I did sit down and write a few bits and down at different points, but I certainly haven't started writing a book. But yeah, I suppose that's another potential way of reaching people and helping people, you know.
And if there was ever a better time to do it, then what better time than now? You've got the isolation, you've got the creative space, you've got the reflective time. Could just take the transcript of everything that you've talked about so far, and there's like a couple of chapters already. Just flesh it out and sort out the grammar, and
I've got a book. Oh my gosh! Is it that simple?
And that's kind of the trend nowadays. Actually, is people just sort of talk the story, and then they hire like a virtual assistant to transcribe it, and then they release that as a book. That's normally for like an ebook sort of thing on the smaller side, maybe 50 to 120 pages maybe, but that's kind of the fashion nowadays, actually.
See, that was I thinking. As soon as you said that, I felt myself going, I'm doing my signature course. Goodness me, I can't do anything else just now. Come on, David, I'm already doing my signature course and everything. And but actually, I suppose it's about flipping your thinking, isn't it? It's like, how can I make this as simple as possible?
And also, you're not going to have a book by next week. Like, it's a process like anything else. And if you're doing half an hour in the morning even, but you do that every single morning, after X number of mornings, which won't actually be as many as you think, you will have a first draft there of 100, 150, 200 pages, and all of them are sort of worthy kind of book territory. There's some fantastic books that are no more than 100 pages, and the average book length in non-fiction is about 200 to 220. So there you are. You're up there with your, your kind of
gosh.
regular books, quote unquote.
Wow. Oh, wow. That's really inspiring. I wasn't expecting that this evening. Wow. Just like, wow, the possibility of writing a book has just opened up.
Yeah.
Wow. Cool.
So yeah, we'll watch this space.
Yeah.
see
Gosh,
what
I
book
said it out loud. I might have to do it. But yeah, there's something that I've learned is there's never a good time for stuff. So you may as well just start, hadn't you? Really.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, there's never a good time, and I think if you were waiting for it, then now quite possibly is the time where where I think everyone is asking for more time, or certainly has been. The majority of people now have a lot more time on their hands. Obviously not the key workers like we've been talking about, but generally speaking, people have said, I don't have enough time to do this. Now you've got all the flipping time in the world and you don't know what to do with it. So yeah, talking about these silver linings that come out of it.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's quite the same for parents, I'll be honest.
Yes, yeah,
Just
yeah. I think parents and key workers are a different case. Yeah.
Just, for my situation, I work from home and I have done for a long time. But usually when I'm working from home, I haven't got my kids around, they're at school. For some of the time, not all the time, but I get a good few hours to focus, and that's been a bit of a challenge the last few weeks, to the balance of that and screaming kids in the background or coming in, and just when you're just like, I'm just focused on this thing, So, but silver lining. You do have to do the most important thing first, otherwise you might not get it done. So
yeah,
so that's good. Yeah. I've
There's
got a friend who's a writer, and she's quite a famous writer. And I remember her saying, "Hey, I've got 4 hours to do about 2 weeks' work." Yeah, it's just like, she works from home. She's got kids and stuff. It's just like, I think that can almost become a superpower for some people, that you have to get a lot done in a smaller amount of time. And actually, when we've got a lot of time, we probably spend a lot of it just faffing about and procrastinating, what have you. If you haven't got time for that, really, so you just got to get on with it. So it probably makes you, having a bit less time probably makes you more productive.
Yeah, I read a book, and it used Teddy Roosevelt as an example in this kind of vein, and I didn't really know anything about him. I actually always get him and Franklin Roosevelt mixed up. That's I literally.
I was just doing that in my head.
Yeah. They are cousins apparently, because I had to go and look this up. I was like, wait, isn't that guy that guy? And isn't that guy? So Teddy Roosevelt was the first one, not the World War II one. And and as I said, I knew essentially nothing about him apart from his famous surname. And when he was at university, I think it was Harvard, he did all of these different things. He was like a polymath, essentially. So he was a wrestler, and he was that word for studying bugs, entomologist, something like that, a person who studies bugs. So you collect all these bugs, and he had about 5 hobbies, and I can't even remember them all at the moment. And he was doing it was probably a law degree at Harvard. And it talked about he didn't have a name for them, but the author called them Roosevelt sprints. And basically he would have this day, and he would have like his classes sort of 9 till 12, and then you'd have his wrestling practice, and then you'd go out into the woods and you'd have to do this assignment, and you just find like a 45-minute block and you just have to sit down and start and try and write, and you'd have maybe like a 15-minute block in between sort of like his class and going off to wrestling practice, and he would just like write as much as he could in 15 minutes. And so he really perfected this art of sort of any free window of time. He didn't have any sort of introductory ritual of I'll sit down, I'll make the cup of tea, and I'll get the lighting right, and I'll turn my music on, which which is what I do for my creative task. He was just like, right, free window of time, and he just did it. And so it was just using that as an example of, depending on the way that your lifestyle is sort of set up, that might be a skill that you want to develop for yourself, is just when you get these little pockets of time. I think people do this to a certain extent. They'll send off a few emails and things like that when they're standing in a queue somewhere, or they're waiting for this, or they've got 20 minutes in between this and in between that, but using it for like really productive creative tasks rather than just sort of like your email and sort of superficial communication. So now you know something about Teddy Roosevelt.
Yeah, well, that's great, because I think it's fantastic, particularly for parents, to be honest, because you might get these short pockets of time. It just makes me think. I was in the queue at the supermarket today, and I was listening to a training on how to do Facebook ads while I was in the queue. I thought, right. So yeah. That's what I was doing in the supermarket queue.
and we've all got that time now, don't we? It's going to take a little bit longer for all of us doing our shopping. So thinking about, well, if I'm going to have this inevitable dead time, what am I going to use it for? And you don't have to be like, how can I Uber productivity my life so I'm super productive? That could be, well, you call a friend or you call your family member, because you're going to have that maybe 20 minutes in the queue, and you can just kind of check in with them for 20 minutes. Or you can listen to your audiobooks, your training, your, dare I say it, podcast. I can think of a good podcast that you might want to listen to.
Absolutely.
Or you can do your emails if that's something that is important, and you're not just sort of kind of scrolling through your inbox for the sake of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I haven't clicked into that because my husband usually does the shopping, and today was the first time I've done the shopping since the things
Everything
have changed.
Yeah,
and so I hadn't I actually drove to one supermarket, and the queues were so long, I went, I'm not staying here, and I drove to the next supermarket and the queues were really long, and I went, okay, I just need to get in a queue, because I can't drive around supermarkets looking for a shorter queue, because it's like that thing when you're on the motorway and you just have
switch
to pick
lanes.
a queue, stick in that lane, stick in your lane until you get to where you need to go. So I just parked up and got in the queue, and I did exactly that. Actually, I rang my mum because I hadn't managed to speak to her for a few days, and I just wanted to check in with her. And I thought, oh yeah, this is a great time, I can do that. And then I did the shopping, and then when I was in the other queue that looked like it was going to take a bit of time, and then I did the the training. But because I hadn't pre-planned, I didn't have a notebook with me or any, because I hadn't, when I pulled up in the car, I was like, I could have brought a notebook if I'd if I'd thought about it, but I'm just not in that way of thinking yet, because this still feels quite new. And like I say, my husband usually does the shopping, so yeah. But it was good for me to be out there and realize how much I control my environment, how much I control the input that I have from the outside world. That I don't watch the news, I don't read newspapers, and when I want some information, I go and get the information for where I want to get it from. I don't just, it doesn't just hit me in the face. And so yeah, I was in my bubble really of working, spending time with my kids, spending time with my kids. That's what I was doing, getting a bit of exercise. Those were the things I was doing. And then going out and going shopping. Suddenly I was like, whoa, this feels all really real. This big change that's happened, and these cues and the empty shelves and all of this. I was like, oh right, it really hit me, and I actually found it quite upsetting. I realized I did find it quite upsetting, and I thought, wow, I have been doing such a great job. I do a meditation in the morning.
Yeah.
I do my journaling in the morning. I get myself in a great space. I do exercise with my kids, spend some time with my kids, and have breakfast and do exercise and all of this stuff. And then sit down to work, and yeah, and and I haven't been digesting. I mean, you can't help but feel it when you go out a little bit, even in the garden,
Yeah.
that energy that's in the space. And if I go for a walk or a run, which that's the kind of form of exercise that I am going for at the moment. I'll go for a walk or a run, and this whole thing of I really noticed this the other day, that how it's actually a lot less relaxing than it used to be, because I'm aware. It reminded me of years ago, we had a Pyrenean mountain dog who didn't like Alsatians, didn't like a local red setter, and he was a 12-stone dog, and I was probably about 6 stone, so he was twice my size, and I used to take him for a walk. And so I knew where all the railings were that I could tie him to, because if he went for another dog, I couldn't hold him.
Yeah.
So I used to tie him up. But it meant I was constantly on the lookout, constantly scanning what dog's around, who's around, what's happening, is there anything that I can see that is going to mean he's going to, go for another dog or something like that. So it wasn't very relaxing walking him, and it reminded me of that, where you're constantly looking at how close somebody is, when do I need to cross the road, all this. It's like a whole nother level of processing that's going on, and I think we're literally building new neural pathways of things that we weren't having to do before, that we're now having to do.
Yeah, I'm even thinking of that in terms of, so I'm kind of doing my sort of local park walks, living in the city. You have to find the green space somewhere. So I can do quite a good one from, in Glasgow, we've got the botanical gardens sort of just north of the university. And then we've got Kelvin Grove Park to the east of the university. And you can actually follow the river round and connect the two of them up. But there's only one path on a certain stretch of the river connecting the two, and it sometimes gets really congested in there. And if people are walking like 2 or 3 abreast, they're blocking the path, and then you're trying to sort of skirt around them, and then people the other way are trying to skirt around. And some people are really ignorant and annoying, where they block the path and then they don't sort of realize that they are, and sort of the problem that they're causing. But I've noticed, I'm thinking, well, how can I actually sort of get through that bit? And what I'm realizing is, well, I'll just have to kind of go back into the built up area a little bit more and walk through there. But I want to walk in the country bit. I want to walk where there's a bit of green space. But of course, everyone else is wanting to, but we're all like trying to use that space and avoid each other at the same time. It's a really kind of weird dynamic for about probably maybe 800 meters or so, where everyone has to use that same little bit.
It's interesting. I had a similar experience because I live near the canal, and I would run a particular route along the canal, but of course most of the path is fairly narrow, so it's only actually probably 1.5 meters wide, So similar thing, you've got 2 people walking along, or 3 people, they're blocking it.
Yeah.
But also, needing to stay 2 meters away from people, it's not actually quite wide enough. Which I think, if they're on bikes and you're running, you're passing so quickly that I think, that's fine. But I decided not to. I stopped when all this happened. I kind of stopped running. I was just like, I don't know how I can't do my normal route. And then I started actually at the beginning of this week, and my first run I just did along the road. And of course I want to be down by the water, and I want to be where it feels more countryside-y. But actually with the pavement and the road and stuff, there's more space to pass. There's more space to keep that distance from people. So that's what I did. And there's a part of the route where I can see the canal actually that I would normally run along. So, but I'm along the road bit. And actually the time of day that I was running, it was like 7 a.m. There was hardly anyone there. So I just thought, actually, if I go early enough, I can probably run my usual route, which is what I did the other day. I did it like 6:30 in the morning, and it was really quiet. There was hardly anyone. So I was like, if I go early enough, there's hardly anyone there. So it's much easier. But yeah, it's just such a change, isn't it, in what we're used to, and yet it's amazing how quickly things become the new normal, isn't it?
Yes. Actually, I was thinking of that on on yesterday's walk through the green space, and I was like, I've actually already planned my week where Thursday we do our family Zoom pub quiz.
Nice.
Saturday we watch the live streamed comedy that the local comedy club are doing but can't do in the comedy club at the moment. And then I do my state sanctioned walk every day, and I'm thinking, right, today I'll loop that way round the the park and the gardens, and then tomorrow I'll loop it in reverse, and then the day after that I'll take that left hand path instead of the right hand path, and my working hours. So I was saying before we started recording, me and my wife aren't kind of coordinating our calls very well at the moment. So I'll be on a call and then I'll be finished, but then she's on a call. So we're now kind of getting like our working hours and like our sort of call schedules and things. And it has actually become like I now have my isolation routine pretty much. And we're in, me and my wife isolated early because she had some symptoms. And that would have been 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks ago. So 4 weeks in, we now have our isolation routine, and that will be how it is for the next 4 or 8 or 12 weeks or however much longer we're going through this.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Yeah, it's kind of similar for us. It took us a little while to get into the homeschooling, like how much to do, and the first week, I mean, our youngest didn't have much anyway, sent home from school, but our eldest had quite a few things, and we got into, she was quite interested in the first week as well. It was all new, and but actually she got really tired, and I think it's this processing thing. There's a change, because actually doing schoolwork at home is very different to doing it in a classroom, so we didn't quite have the balance right. She was doing too much, and of course the younger one not having as much stuff as well, and just wanting to play with her and stuff as well. So, but on Thursday was when school would have been breaking up and he said Christmas, for the Easter holidays. So we decided that, we're having a break over the weekend and stuff, but actually keeping a bit of a routine. Actually, no, it wasn't this week. It was last week, broke up for holidays. The first few days we just like free flowed. And it was amazing how much more tired we were, and actually having no routine was not helping at all. Everybody's feeling a lot more stressed instead of more relaxed. So just having a basic level of routine, really great, but a lot of free time, a lot of play for the girls, a lot of play actually. So where my eldest Freya would have probably been working, having actually just that free time instead to just play and make things up. And this weekend we've already had today the first treasure hunt that Phoebe did for her older sister. Oh no, they did one each. They did one for each other. We'll have an Easter egg hunt on Sunday, and actually, because I did the shopping today, I bought my husband and I an egg. Yay! So I'm actually, I just thought I'm going to have an egg this year.
Yeah.
So I think the girls love doing us an egg hunt. They just love doing the clues and thinking up all the. They just love treasure hunts, basically. So they will love doing us an egg hunt. So I think most of Sunday is going to be doing that. Egg hunts.
We've talked about a few things that have kind of changed or that we've had to adapt to in this situation, and it looks like we're going to have to continue to adapt and change as things go on. Do you have any ideas or thoughts on things that are going to be really important for us during this period? Routines, practices, techniques that we could use, anything of that kind?
Yeah, do you know, I actually created a little free offering that will be available still. If anybody wants that, you're very welcome to download that. It's called 7 Ways to Stay Sane While Stuck at Home with Arguing Kids. So, and there's one tool on there which is actually for the arguing kids bit, and the rest actually are for you. The rest are for you. And things that I do every day to really support me and ground me. So one of them is having a gratitude practice. It makes a massive difference. Really connecting with the good things, connecting with what you're grateful for. We have a family gratitude practice actually.
Oh,
So we
nice.
always talk about what we're grateful for at the dinner table.
Yeah. We
always share at least one thing we're grateful for from that day. But when I go on my walk or my run, I flood myself with all the things that I am grateful for, and it doesn't matter what it is, you know, the tiniest things. I just flood myself with one thing after another, over and over. My family, my girls, my environment, it can be what I'm seeing, where I am, how I'm feeling, my health. There's just so many things you can be grateful for. You know, I always have Anthony Robbins's head, Tony Robbins's head in my voice in my head, saying what's wrong is always available, and so is what's right. If you flood yourself with the things that you're grateful for, flood yourself with the things that you appreciate about your life, that you appreciate about the people in your life, about the situations, the books, the technology, the everything that we have that is available to us. The healthcare, oh my goodness, I am so grateful for the healthcare that we have in this country. I am so grateful for people driving delivery vans to bring us stuff. We drew this rainbow. There's all these rainbows everywhere, and we went out and we drew a big rainbow at the entrance to our building outside on the pavement. And we one morning this week, this lovely rainbow, and we did this big thank you, and the bin men were due to come, and they came and we waved to them, and we stood next to our big thank you, and it was really lovely, that appreciation. And my daughter wrote thank you everyone. Now the reason she wanted to write thank you everyone, because she said there's too many people, Mum, we can't list them all, there's too many of them.
Yeah,
because there are. And I know a lot of people focus it on the NHS, and I am so massively grateful for all of the people, all the key workers. But there are so many, the girl today who served me at the checkout, I am so grateful that she's doing her job so I can get food to eat,
Yeah.
So grateful for the guy who's stacking the shelf that helped me go find the lentils. I'm so grateful for him. I'm so grateful for so many people, for our postman coming and bringing the post so we can get our, these beautiful cards that have been sent to us, for Easter, and the cards that we have sent. My daughter Phoebe has had 2 friends have their birthdays, and so has Freya. They both had 2 friends in the last week have their birthdays. And so, they wrote them cards and sent those in the post so they'll get those through. And Freya's had her first online party.
The way of the future.
Yeah, I know, gosh. And, I'm so grateful that that's all, that you can send somebody, to receive a card right now. I think is so nice to have that arrive in the post. And in fact, it's so funny. She wouldn't like me telling you this, but anyway, don't tell her. My eldest is at this age. She's somebody who's always been so great at really playing with the girls and the boys in her class. She's always, and she'll be 11 in May, and they're coming into this kind of more puberty kind of thing where their boys and girls are a lot more separate, but she's always traversed the 2 groups for a long time. She's always been somebody great at that. And one of the people who's just had their birthday is a boy in her class, and she was like, I said, oh, you could give him a call. She's like, oh no, I'm not going to call him. I was like, what? I was like, what's happened to my Freya? She's been somebody who's always been like, yeah, I play with the girls, play with the boys. And I was like, why is she saying this? Oh my God, she's changing. Anyway, she did send him a card, right, to say happy birthday, which was really nice. And his mum messaged yesterday actually, to say, can he call her to, have a chat and say thank you. Anyway, this happened while I was out shopping, doing the food shopping, and I got back and they were on the phone for an hour chatting, and I was like, oh yes, that's great, I love it. And I was like, what happened to him? I'm going to say to the boys, and it was just like old times. These are, this is a friend we've been camping with quite a few times, like every year since they were in the class 1 together. We've had this annual camping trip where we've gone together, and she's always been friends with him. So I just thought, oh, that's nice. So I was like, oh, and then so they were chatting for an hour, so that was really lovely. So I'm so glad that she's still connecting with the boys and the girls. So, yeah. But yeah, that's a whole nother chapter to navigate as a parent.
Yeah. You used the words available earlier on, talking about the head in your voice, or the voice in your head, of Tony Robbins.
Yes.
Talking about availability. Do you think there are any opportunities available at the current time?
Opportunities available? Yeah, there's always opportunities available. Always. I was listening to something the other day, which was, I can't remember what it was now, but in recessions, there's always people who make money in a recession.
Yeah.
Of course there's opportunities. If you make hand sanitizer right now, oof, you can sell as much hand sanitizer as you can produce right now. In fact, you probably can't produce it fast enough.
Yeah.
So there's always opportunities, isn't there? There's always something. But I think what it is about being of service. It's about finding, what do people need? What can you provide that people need right now? How can you serve your community? So it's about that. And I think we can go into fear and worry and survival mode and worry about meeting our needs and come from that place. But actually, I think it's important to take a step back and take a breath and actually connect back into, okay, how can I be of service? How can I serve my community? How can I help? What do I have that can make a difference, because everybody has something. Everybody's got a book in them. Everybody's got a course in them. Everybody's got something they know about that can really help someone. So it's about connecting with those things, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what I think anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot in our time today, Sarah, and I'd like to start bringing everything full circle. And to do this, I've got one final question, but the question is actually yours. This is something I've been having some fun with over the last few interviews, of giving you the opportunity to either ask our audience a question or to give them a question they should be asking themselves.
Ooh.
What's that question?
The question that I think you should be asking yourselves, and I've been asking myself a lot over the last couple of years, is what do I really want? What do I really want? Yeah. So that you, because I've just said about looking for the opportunities, being of service, but coming from a place of your own joy as well, that's where the magic happens. When you can be of service by doing something and providing something that comes almost naturally to you, or that is one of your superpowers, then along that path lies joy. Yeah. So to check in with what do I really want, making sure you're staying in alignment with who you are in that being of service, because it's not about being at service. It's not about sacrificing yourself. It's a bit like what I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
It's not about you can have it all. It's that, isn't it? It's like what you have, that you are enough, that you have something to offer that is valuable, that is worthwhile, and that is transformational and will make a difference for somebody. So you don't have to sacrifice your joy to be of service. You can do both. So to check in and see, what do I want in this as well, is really important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, Sarah, I'd just like to thank you for joining us on the podcast today. I always try and sum up my experience of a guest in a word, a trait or an attribute that I've picked up. And from you, it's definitely been enthusiasm. You've brought so much enthusiasm into how you present yourself and sharing your message and sharing your passions and ideas. So I'd just like to acknowledge that and mark that here on the podcast today.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
To continue to help you through this isolation period, I've decided to open up my Author Your Life Academy for free for the next 3 months. Author Your Life is my online educational community where you can access training sessions, workshops, and question and answers, and connect with other people around the world who are going through this situation and trying to make the best of things. The Academy normally costs $27 a month to subscribe, but for the next 3 months, I'm going to open that up for free. Essentially, you're getting a 3-month free trial of the platform. To access the Author Your Life Academy, go to authoryourlife.org/academy, and when prompted, enter the code CORONA in block capitals. Yes, what else would the code be? CORONA in block capitals, and that will take your $27 subscription down to $0 for the next 3 months. The Academy is where I'm going to be focusing a lot of my content during this difficult time. It's where I'm trying to bring people together to help and support each other as we go through this period of isolation, of fear, of uncertainty. I hope the Academy is something that will be able to help you too during this situation. So if you want to come in and join us, as I said, go to authoryourlife.org/academy, and when you sign up, enter the code CORONA, and that will give you 3 months for free It's my gift to you to try and help and support during this time as best I can. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd appreciate it hugely if you could head over to iTunes and leave a rating and review for the podcast. With your review, please be as honest and detailed as you can be. Because with honest and detailed feedback, that helps me to adapt and grow this podcast to most serve you, the listener. Also, if you enjoyed this episode, then make sure you subscribe to the podcast. That way you aren't going to miss any of the future episodes that we've got lined up for you. Until next time, remember that you are the author of your life. You hold the pen, and you can write whatever script you want for yourself. So go out today and write yourself a beautiful story.